Hey folks, I'm Raven. Today's video is going to be a guide on Warwick, the Unchained Wrath of Zorn, as requested by one of you. So why should you be playing Warwick in Season 11? Well, he's got a powerful early game, a very healthy clear, and he's really good at chasing people down. But the main reason I would suggest you play Warwick is because he's very good to learn the jungle role with. Because of his healthy clear and easy ganks, he's really good as a almost starting to jungle / learning the role with. He does have a couple of downsides though, like he's easily countered by grievous wounds and he does fall off late game, which means as you climb up the ranks and get to higher elo, he does fall off quite hard, he's no longer as good. But definitely if you're playing in like say silver and below, Warwick is a very viable champion that is great for learning the role with. Anyway, let's get into the rest of the video. Warwick's passive is what makes him such a dangerous early game brawler. The first part of it is that he deals on-hit magic damage that scales with both his AP, AD and level. The second part of his passive is that when he is below 50% health, he then heals for that on-hit damage. And then once Warwick is below 25% max health, he heals for 250% of that on-hit magic damage. This means early game he's really difficult to fight if you don't already have grievous wounds, because he will get low and then immediately start to heal even more than he was already. You should abuse this as Warwick to bully and fight the enemy jungler early, assuming they are somebody that you can go toe to toe with. Warwick's Q, Jaws of the Beast, lets him dash towards his target, dealing magic damage equal to 120% of his AD, 90% of his AP, and scaling percent max health damage based on his level. It also applies any on hit effects and heals Warwick for between 30 and 90% of the damage dealt based on level. If you hold the ability down when casting, you'll latch on to the target and swing round to the opposite side of them. This has many uses, from following flashes to dodging skill shots to simply and easily getting behind Rifty to pop the eye. Obviously, as I already mentioned, the best tip for this skill is to hold it in a fight until somebody is going to flash, so you basically follow them through their flash and it makes their flash null and void, as they didn't gain any space between you and them. Bloodhunt is the ability Warwick is most known for. Warwick gains between 35 and 55% movement speed based on level of the skill when moving towards an enemy below 50% of their max health. The target is also marked by a blood trail, and when fighting with Warwick he receives between 70% and 110% attack speed against the target. These bonuses increase even more when the target is below 20% max health. Now obviously you can best use this passive by being map away in combination with it, as it allows you to very easily gank over aggressive laners and greedy laners. But that's not even all of the ability, as it is an active as well. The active allows Warwick to make the nearest enemy in a fairly large area, no matter their health, be marked for 8 seconds. This is the skill you'll max first as Warwick, partly because it gains such a massive cooldown reduction from leveling it. A tip for this skill would be not to use it too early, as any laner that is marked gains a symbol above their head warning them that you've marked them. So you're effectively yelling to them that you're going to come gank them if you do this too early. Primal Howl is the final ability you'll max as Warwick, but by no means does this mean it's a weak or unimportant part of his kit. Once activated, all incoming damage is reduced against him by between 35 and 55% based on level for up to 2.5 seconds. Or if you want, you can reactivate the ability to end it early. Once the ability ends, or after the 2.5 seconds runs out, all targets in a short area around Warwick are feared for 1 second. A side note for this ability, landing your R will automatically reactivate Primal Howl, but the targets won't flee. A tip for using this ability would be to combine it with your Q to flip around to the opposite side of the enemy, and then reactivate your E to cause them to be feared in the direction of your team, aka their death. Warwick's R is the definition of a lockdown ability. When you activate it, Warwick will leap in a targeted direction. This ability scales with movement speed, by the way. Suppressing the enemy champion you land on for 1.5 seconds. For those unaware, suppression effectively means you're like locked down, you can't use any abilities, you can't flash, etc. And over the duration of the suppression, Warwick will deal between 175 and 525 plus 1.675 per bonus attack damage as magic damage to his target, applying all on-hit effects 3 times. Warwick also heals for the damage dealt. Warwick isn't stoppable during the jump, but the suppression phase can be interrupted. I mean, I feel like it's fairly obvious, but due to it being a suppression, a good tip for this would be to target any squishy assassins, ADCs, mages that are fed, or if somebody is tower diving your team and you can jump on them and suppress them under tower with the tower hitting them, that's also great. Alright, so in this part of the video we'll be talking about the level order for Warwick Jungle. Okay, so at level 1 you're going to go Jaws of the Beast, at level 2 you're going to go Blood Hunt, and at level 3 you're going to go Primal Howl. You'll then max Blood Hunt, and then you'll max Jaws of the Beast, and then finally you'll max Primal Howl. Obviously at level 6, 11 and 16 you will put a point into Infinite Duress along the way to get that maxed at level 16. Okay, so in this part of the video I'm going to be covering the runes for Warwick in Season 11. He is a character that has multiple rune pages that can work, but I personally have a favourite by a significant margin, so I'm going to be covering that mainly, and then I'll mention another rune page that I think is viable, I just don't personally use it. So for the page that I recommend you use and is my personal favourite, it would be Press the Attack, Triumph, Legend Alacrity, and then either Coup de Grace or Last Stand, depending on how you want to play it. Then as your secondary, I like to go Sorcery, and in the Sorcery tree there are 3 minor runes that I personally don't mind taking. That would be either Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, or Water Walking. All of them give you mobility, so all of them do a similar job. I like them. Warwick is a very mobility based champion. You chase people down, you jump in towards people, so increasing your mobility is an important part of your kit. So in my opinion, having these runes are essential for your success. Your minor runes are going to be Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. Now, the one change people do like to make to this is Conqueror. It really depends on how strong Conqueror and Press the Attack are. If Conqueror is really overpowered, people will go Conqueror. If Press the Attack is more overpowered, people will go Press the Attack. I personally prefer Press the Attack, but I'm mentioning Conqueror so people are aware it is a option, and if you see it, it isn't like it's wrong, it's just not my personal take. Alright, so in this part of the video I'm going to be talking about which items I think personally work best for Warwick in Season 11. Jumping right into it, you're going to be going Ember Knife most of the time because Warwick is a very brawly hero that doesn't really have trouble getting on top of people. So there's no point going Blue Smite when you could get the benefits of Red Smite and still have no trouble getting on top of people. When it comes to your starting secondary things like your potions and stuff, you could go Control Ward and Health Bar if you wanted to. I've went it a few times, but if you are new to Warwick or new to jungling, refillable is a safer option. When it comes to the mythic items in Warwick, he has many that can work on him. But if you want some general recommendations, if you're going to be going tanky, go Sunfire Aegis, you can see there it gives you armor, magic resistance, and health, everything you need to just survive longer. And if you want to deal more damage, say you want to go for a more brawlery style Warwick, it still gives you health, so you're not going to be squishy, but you won't be as tanky as you would be with Sunfire. You could go Divine Sunderer. It just depends on what you want. There are many mythics that can work on Warwick, but if you want some just general recommendations, these two are pretty safe options. When it comes to your boots, you're going to go either Steel Caps or Mercurius Treads. It just depends on the context of the game. If they have lots of CC or magic damage heroes, you're going to go Mercurius Treads, and if they have lots of AD or a really fed ADC or something like that, you're going to go plated Steel Caps. In most games as Warwick, you're always going to end up with Titanic Hydra. Some people actually rush Tiamat into their mythic. I personally don't, but some people do. And then obviously after getting the 500 health from that, the 400 health or the 300 health from those items, you're going to have lots of health at that point, so getting something like Asterix Gauge isn't a bad option because it increases your damage based off of your health. You've already stacked loads of health, so it just makes sense to follow up with Asterix Gauge. Now, at this point, you're going to have 4 or 5 items, so recommending any more will be difficult. But if you really want some recommendations for follow-up items, you probably want to make yourself a bit tankier, because Warwick does fall off a little bit late game. So you're probably going to want something like Deadman's, Spirit Visage, or Formail. It's hard to recommend exactly what, because it is extremely game dependent, but any of them can work in the right context. Anyway, it's hard to recommend a full build for Warwick, because he's such a item dependent champion in terms of what you're going to build. If you're up against a full AP team, you're not going to build a Deadman's Plate. But if you're up against a full AD team, you're not going to build a Spirit Visage, and you're probably not going to build Mercurius Threads. So it's hard to recommend a full build for him, but if you want a fairly safe build, something like this would work. You can swap these out for steel toe caps, but you can swap a lot of the items out in here for other items depending on the context of the game. Anyway, those have been the items for Warwick in Season 11. Okay, so in this part of the video I'll be sharing my opinions on what is the best starting clear for Warwick in Season 11. You're going to start the game by heading to the opposite side you plan on starting on, dropping a ward. At about 52 seconds you should start recalling, drop a ward just as you're about to recall, and then swap to Oracle then. Personally, as Warwick, I like to start on my bot side so I get the 2 people to leash me instead of just 1. This will be a red side clear. I'll show a blue side clear in a second. So as you can see, when I'm clearing from a red side, I like to do red buff into wolves, into blue buff into gromp. It's a healthy clear and will get you level 3. I tend to skip chickens as Warwick because you take too much damage and you're not great at clearing camps with lots of little units early because you just don't have the AoE for it. After that, I'm Warwick. I'm a very good early game brawler. The Shaco had actually shown himself on the map earlier in the clear, so I knew and because I checked his CS, I knew he hadn't yet done his red buff, so I checked to make sure there was no wards with my Oracle lens and then invaded him, and I actually got 2 buffs and killed him. So yeah, remember guys, as Warwick, you're very powerful early gaming, you should definitely abuse that. We'll move on to the blue clear now. Okay, so immediately on the blue side clear, I'm going to start by dropping down a ward, start the recall at 52 seconds, drop a regular ward down and swap to an Oracle lens. This game I was against an Eve, so I wanted to start mirroring her. I knew she'd start on her red buff, and I wanted to make sure I finished so I could fight her for Scuttle, because Evelyn is a character that needs level 6 as soon as possible, so if you can double Scuttle her, you're going to put her back a lot. That's great, so you always want to try and mirror people that you can put behind. Anyway, the clear I went for this time was blue into Gromp into wolves. I did raptors. I wouldn't normally recommend you do raptors. I'm not sure why I did it. I think I started them without thinking, but because I was level 3 I had my E, which is an AoE ability, to burn them all at least. So maybe like you can get away with it. It was a mistake though. Next I chased Evelyn off of Scuttle, which is the entire reason I mirrored her clear. Went down immediately, walked straight through mid lane for the fastest possible route and took bottom Scuttle. As you can see, again, Warwick's a very powerful early game jungler. You need to abuse that to get ahead of theirs, especially if there's somebody like Evelyn who's going to scale up very well. You need to get ahead. So setting Evelyn back by taking both Scuttles from her and wasting her time, really good. And actually in a second she comes into lane and I kill her. So she gets set really far back from this. So again, biggest piece of advice for early gamers Warwick, pay attention to the map. You'll notice throughout all of my clears I'm constantly flicking about the map, pinging around, tracking the enemy jungler to try and find exactly where the jungler is to set their jungler back so I can get ahead, because as an early game powerful jungler that falls off, you need to do that, because when you fall off, their jungler needs to have already been beaten out of the game by that point, so your team isn't just missing a champion. Anyway folks, that's been my guide for Warwick in Season 11. Again, no guide's going to make you perfect overnight. You're going to need to put in the hours, but hopefully this will help you get that starting jump into understanding the character, and maybe you picked up a couple of tips along the way. It's been a fun video to make, but again, I'm not perfect at making guides. I've made mistakes filming it, as you saw with me killing the raptors, and I'm not a perfect player and I'm definitely not great at making videos yet, so if you have any constructive criticism, please do drop it below. And if you have any requests for any other characters you'd like to see a guide on, preferably characters I play, but I will learn them to make guides I guess, drop them below and I'll let you know what I can do. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully you have a great rest of your day.